BBOR Black Box Online Radio, coming to you from West Virginia. BlackBoxNid88 on Instagram for the bonus podcast. And welcome to BBOR, the home of true crime talk radio and your premier destination for unsolved mysteries, criminal psychology, and exploring the dark side of cyberspace. My name is Ned DeHaan, and I am your host, as well as the creator of AstroPsych 400 here on YouTube, and regular contributor to the Zodiac Killer channel. And a great way to support these shows is just by listening to some more content. But you can also go over to Amazon.com and have a look at the book Killer on a White Horse, written by me, Ned DeHaan. It is a novel, murder mystery, inspired by the Zodiac Manson connection, but it is indeed fictional. However, who doesn't love a good mystery? And there is always the TeeSpring page. Feel free to check out some of the merchandise. And remember, being weird is not a crime. Let the show begin. This episode of Black Box Online Radio is brought to you by Rep Sports and Raze Energy. Are you a fan of energy drinks, protein shakes, and health foods? Well, I sure am. I use the stuff almost every single day. They sell Raze Energy products at my local gym, but you can have them shipped to your home. Use the coupon code NED075, that's NED075, for discounts applied at the checkout. The link is in the description box. Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to the show. Today I will be talking about the disappearance of Selena Mays from 1996, but just a couple of quick announcements before we begin. The first is that I would like to give a big thank you to everyone who listened to the episode on Chris Kyle and the story of American Sniper here on this channel that came out just last Wednesday. So thank you so much for checking that episode out and giving your feedback in the comments section and responding to all of the challenge questions. And the second is there will be a return of the Zodiac Killer debunking series, which will come out this weekend. And that series is hopefully going to be ongoing, so if you have any Zodiac Killer suspects that you think are absolutely not the Zodiac Killer, I can discuss them in that segment. There's also a playlist that has been assembled for the previous episodes here on this channel. Lots of things here on BBOR, so please like and subscribe. And the third announcement is that I will be celebrating St. Patrick's Day with you guys here on BBOR. It is now the month of March at the time of this recording, so please look out for that in the near future, a St. Patrick's Day celebratory episode. And the next announcement is more or less responding to a comment that somebody left as opposed to a future event. Before I talk about the disappearance of Selena Mays, I have something to share about the murder of Adrian Shelley. I did that episode in the early part of 2020, and someone left a comment recently saying that you seem excited and almost breathless to talk about this crime. A woman was murdered, and she was a human being much more than an algorithm. Hot, P-O-T. I'm not really sure what the final word there was meant to say, but I was quite surprised to read that comment because I had so many conflicting emotions about it. The first was, perhaps I did do something inappropriate in that episode. Nothing specific was identified other than my tone of voice, but I have been very critical of other YouTubers and commentators and the mainstream media in the past for the way that they talk about true crime cases. For starters, there are many channels out there that use a comedic type of delivery. They start laughing at the situation and making fun of the victims and the entirety of it all. But I don't think that's what this person was addressing. I've noticed that even some of the very well-respected true crime personalities on YouTube approach the material in somewhat of a lighthearted way, and they don't sound like they're talking about someone who was murdered because of a horrible and tragic reason. It's almost like a problem-solving issue or like a game that needs a solution. And I think that is simply because they've spent a lot of time with the true crime material and they are somewhat desensitized. But there is, again, another conflicting element, and that is that Adrian Shelley was an actress. She was a writer, a director. She had just released her movie Waitress, which stars Kerry Russell and Jeremy Sisto, and she was at the top of her game, and she was murdered in a very untimely way. I mean, absolutely, rest in peace to her. So, no, I would never want to celebrate her murder, but celebrating her accomplishments in filmmaking, yes, I would approach that with enthusiasm, as well as, I think breathless was the word that was used. And Adrienne Shelley is also featured in the movie Factotum, which is based on the Bukowski novel and stars Matt Dillon in the lead role. She has a small role in that film as well. I love that film. That's the best movie where nothing ever happened. But as far as trying to fuel the algorithm, I mean, this is definitely not the most popular episode that I've ever done, and it's definitely not the most popular video out on YouTube. It's just one of those old black box recordings that doesn't even have the sparks or the snowflakes or the bubbles. It just has some streaks of blue light there. It was meant to be a pure podcast. So at the end of this episode, if you are curious, I would invite you to listen to my piece that I did, The Murder of Adrienne Shelley, about the late filmmaker and actor, screenwriter, a very talented woman who was taken before her time. And moving on to today's main story, I would like to be talking about the disappearance of Selena Mays. So, I got a piece of mail recently. It was one of those little booklets of coupons, and at the very bottom, there was a missing persons flyer, and it's attached directly to the other coupons, and it was talking about the disappearance of Selena Mays, who went missing from New Jersey in 1996. And I decided to just put her name into Google. Prior to that, I had never heard of her before, and I was astonished about the amount of news coverage that had been done with the story of Selena Mays, because I do this very frequently. Like, say, for example, if I have seen someone's photo at the post office or at Walmart, or maybe just on the television when they do some very brief true crime stories, I often look them up because I'm naturally curious and I want to know more. And a lot of the time, there there is not a substantial amount of information. There's not a lot of news coverage. Yet the story hasn't been heavily covered. But with the disappearance of Selena Mays, not only was there a lot of news coverage, but there are all types of theories that are woven into this story. And to help us out, I'm going to go over to an article from the Burlington County Times, and this was written by Ahmad Austin Jr., and it was published in 2021 for the 25th anniversary of the disappearance of Selena Mays. And I will lay out one original piece of groundwork, and that is that Selena Mays went missing when she was 12 years old. She has never been found, and she was 9 months pregnant at the time, even though she was in a young age. So they have this intro line. Selena was 12 years old when she disappeared. She was also 9 months pregnant, just 2 weeks from her due date. After following hundreds of leads that have yet to bear any meaningful fruit, police are mobilizing efforts to get people talking about her case again. Selena May's last night at home was one that was filled with ice cream. In 1996, we had limited resources to communicate with the public and acquire the details regarding the missing persons case, the Willingboro Police Department said in a statement. In 2021, social media has evolved greatly and can now reach a wide variety of people quickly through platforms. Selena disappeared on December 16th of 1996. After church that night, the family returned to their Crestview Drive home and ate ice cream in the kitchen. When Selena finished around 11 p.m., she kissed everyone goodnight and put her dishes in the sink. All was normal until, according to her stepmother, Yvette Mays, Selena said, "Thanks for everything." The family may not have thought anything of it at that moment, but looking back, they saw it as very telling. Selena's 4-year-old stepsister was sent to wake the teen for breakfast, but she found only pillows and sheets arranged to make it seem like she was still in bed. All of Selena's personal belongings, like her purse, CD player, and other items, were left in the room. It appeared as though she left with nothing but the clothes on her back. And the very next line here is a header that says Disappearance Conspiracy Theories. It didn't take long after her disappearance was reported for the speculation and theories to form. One of the first angles was looking at Selena's father, whose name was CJ. Family members claim that she never revealed who got her pregnant. In fact, her father, CJ, said she became upset when she learned blood tests done on the baby could lead to the identification of the baby's father. CJ Mays said his daughter told him that the father was 16 years old and not a member of their church. So that sentence really bothered me when I heard it the first time, that she thought that that was necessary to include that he wasn't a member of the church. And I'm sharing my journey with you through the reading process. And I also encountered a video from the channel The Milk Carton Series, which talked about the disappearance of Selena Mays. And the host of that program wanted to elaborate on why she felt the need to do that. For starters, Selena's family was very involved with a particular church. I believe it's her aunt who was the pastor, the sister of her father, therefore her aunt, and in the past, her biological mother and her father had had their own issues. They had somewhat of an unstable life. Her father was dealing with substance abuse, and by the time Selena disappeared, though, her mother had already passed away, and she was under the custody of her father, CJ. But they had turned to the church as a way to correct some of the things in the past. But it was a very strict and involved Pentecostal church. And on the Milk Carton series, the host said that she also grew up as a church kid, and she experienced a lot of things that she thought were perhaps very similar to the life of Selena Mays, because I did not grow up in this regular church-going life, but I think the point was that it wasn't simply just going to Sunday church and Sunday services. It was something that is taking up an enormous amount of her time, maybe going to church every other day even. That's exactly what was said on the Milk Carton series. Those were the types of experiences that she would have had, so no matter what, it was probably a very large part of her life. And as far as conspiracy theories go, there was a video put out on YouTube by CBS Philadelphia that was trying to put all of the focus on that church, saying that the church officials did not want to talk about the disappearance of Selena Mays, and somebody at some point over the years even encouraged the churchgoers and the people who worked with the church not to speak to the media about the disappearance of Selena Mays. That is purely a theoretical statement, but that's what they zoned in on. They wanted to make it seem as though the church was hiding something. But what really happened to Selena? Because I found that no matter what source I was looking at, it was turning to the immediate theory that this was simply a runaway, that Selena was living in a very strict environment. Still, she had gotten pregnant, even though she's 9 months pregnant. Everybody certainly knows about it. She's having conversations with her father about it, and she hasn't revealed who the father is, but she could have just run away on her own accord. And that detail about how the pillows were placed on the bed to make it look like someone was sleeping in it. Now, I've never actually done that myself, but I've seen that in numerous television shows about how someone is going to just put the pillows underneath the blanket and make it look like there's a person's body there. If all of that is indeed true, then that definitely does suggest that there was a runaway, but the alternative is that somebody abducted Selena and then placed them there so they would fool anyone who walked by the room or walked into the room briefly for a second. The other theories involve members of Selena's family. Doesn't even have to be directly connected to the church, and it's not like the church would have necessarily been involved in these theories, and suspicion fell under C.J. Mays, her father, and that he may have been the biological father of Selena's unborn child, and then something happened to hide that dark secret. But C.J. Mays addressed this directly to dispel, I repeat, dispel this theory by providing documentation that he had a vasectomy well before Selena could have gotten pregnant, years before, so that was confirmed. So there's no possible way that he was the biological father of that child, so that theory goes out the window. And then I was listening to the YouTube channel Caribbean Kool-Aid. I always want to say Caribbean. That was really hard. I say Caribbean, but she said very clearly in her episode that it's Caribbean Kool-Aid. And they put forward another theory that it could have been one of Selena's cousins who was the biological father of the baby and had some role in her disappearance. But it is really quite difficult to tell without anything else resurfacing. And what do you guys make of the detail that there hasn't been there weren't a lot of items that were taken from the room. The CD player, most of her clothing was left behind. She left with only the clothes on her back. Does that suggest a runaway, or does that suggest an abduction and somebody staged the scene? I also want to point out that Caribbean Kool-Aid and the milk carton stories and myself all found this case in very similar ways. If you watch the video from Caribbean Kool-Aid, I believe that she said, the host of that program says that she learned about this in the 90s because she lived in that part of the country in New Jersey and she saw something on the news firsthand. But she received an advertisement in the mail, which she was calling a newspaper, and she actually held it up, and for me it was a coupon booklet, but I think it was the same photo that I've been featuring in this episode. So, I mean, this has definitely gone nationwide. And on the milk carton stories, the host said that she saw Selena's picture in Walmart and then caught the name and decided to look her up later and found the news coverage. There is definitely a lot of media attention surrounding the disappearance of Selena Mays, and I have to reiterate, I am truly surprised about how all of these theories have been intertwined into the media. Was she abducted by a church official? Was her cousin the biological father and smuggled her out of town? These are things that you would normally find in the YouTube comments section as opposed to media sources. But on that note, I would like to keep going with this because Investigation Discovery has an article out about the disappearance of Selena Mays called 12-Year-Old Selena Mays was 9 months pregnant when she vanished in 1996. Investigators said Selena Mays was 12 years old when she disappeared without a trace more than 2 decades ago from her Willingboro, New Jersey home. She was last seen on December 16th of 1996. Detective Monica Pogorzelski with the Willingboro Police Department told CBS3 she went missing in the middle of the night. As her father reported to us, she did not give birth yet. She was 9 months pregnant. Pogorzelski said, from everything the investigators learned over the years, Selena was accepting of her pregnancy, and it was very strange for her to go missing, especially only 2 weeks from having the baby. Well, that begs the question, though. Was someone trying to silence her? Was she very nervous when she learned that they can do things like, they said blood testing, but of course DNA testing, to find out who the father was? DNA was, of course, still not super well discussed in 1996. I only say this because of people like Barry Scheck and Dennis Fung on the O.J. Simpson case. But was someone bothered by that and they wanted to hide the fact that they were the biological father of Selena's baby? Was it someone in the church, as CBS Philadelphia was insinuating? I just don't know, but what do you think? You can weigh in the comments section down below. The Burlington County Times reported that on the night before Selena vanished, she went to church, had ice cream with her family, and then went to bed around 11 p.m. She kissed her family goodnight, and the next morning, according to her stepsister, they found her room empty with pillows and sheets that had been shaped to look like a person. For more than 25 years, the investigators followed leads but had no luck. The road has not been easy for investigators. Reportedly, they tried to get a judge to sign off a search warrant early on the church where Selena went, but those efforts were blocked. Investigators believe that it's possible Selena could still be connected to her faith today and are unaware authorities are even looking for her. It's also possible she could be using another name. And you've been seeing the graphic that's going by, but Selena is, of course, still missing. There's an age progression of her on the right-hand side that has been aged to 33 years old, although she would be a little bit older today. She was born in 1984, so if she were still alive, she'd be just shy of her 38th birthday, and she would be 37 years old at the time of this recording. But instantly I thought that perhaps this was indeed a runaway because of the fact that those pillows were there and that she seemed very nervous, but the fact that not a lot of things were taken, that doesn't quite suggest the actions of a runaway. Normally you'd think that there would be more items missing from her room, I, but I simply do not know. I mean, and I would love to hear what you guys think in the comments section down below. It is a very interesting observation, though, that is put forward by this Investigation Discovery article, that maybe Selena did indeed run away, start a new life, and she doesn't even know that she's still a missing person. I didn't learn about this case until recently, and those other two YouTubers that I cited also either remembered the case or they learned about it because of the recent publicity that has been surrounding the disappearance of Selena Mays. And I just want to point out that it was from paper advertisements and not electronic sources, so those things can be very valuable, and hopefully that will lead to a conclusion. And the final note that I will share is that CBS Philadelphia did report that the church that Selena attended has now been shut down and it is no longer in use. So as far as conducting an investigation with the church members, churchgoers, and the staff from that building who would have been there in 1996, well, they have all moved on to other places. If anyone is still alive at all, they will not be attending that church because it is closed. And when you watch some of the photos of it in the media coverage, it looks like a ghost town, even though it's just one building. But what do you think about the disappearance of Selena Mays? I'd like to turn it over to you now. Does any particular theory resonate with you? And if you would like to hear more about this, I would recommend the videos from the Milk Carton series, as well as Caribbean Kool-Aid, here on YouTube for free. You can watch and listen. Both of them are not very lengthy, but rather informative. And of course, you can always check out more episodes here on Black Box Online Radio, including The Murder of Adrian Shelley, as well as American Sniper on the story of Chris Kyle. And feel free to visit repsports.com, use the code NED075, and you can get discounts. You can also visit the Teespring page, look at the book Killer on a White Horse. Anybody can write the show at blackboxonlineradio at AOL.com. You can also get me on Facebook. My personal Facebook is in the description box, as well as the page for Black Box Online Radio. The show has its own Facebook page, and you can get me on Instagram as well. Lots of ways to keep in touch. BlackBoxNed88 over there, and I will see you guys on Instagram for the bonus podcast. Until next time.